here's a question. Can a librarian, or does the librarian have a right to deny someone a book if they are illiterate? I have heard of librarians denying checkout of books due to them not turning in the book on time and therefore it is overdue. Or they didn't pay whatever fee they needed to pay for, or they damaged the book, or if they, because they have an overdue book, they can't have that book until that other book is returned. If they're not allowed to have that book, like say, for example, a child checking out an adult book, like, I don't know, a child checking out 50 Shades of Grey. I don't think a child's supposed to read that, so. Or let's say a book, for example, let's say they just restore a book and they can only have a certain amount of copies, and if you wanted to read a copy, you had to be put on a waiting list. Those reasons to be denied to check out a book, I've heard of, are both reasonable and, of course, policy and so forth. But never heard of a rule saying, oh, you must deny a person a book if they are illiterate, because reality is that is discriminatory. And that's something that happened to me, unfortunately. I remember in first grade, I wanted to check out a book, and this book was called, it was a book of poems. And it was, I do not remember the guy's name, but it was Where the Sidewalk Ends. And yeah, okay, I didn't know how to read it, but then again, I didn't think anything of it. It was just like, yeah, at that moment in time, I didn't know how to read. I didn't know how to read until I was in third grade. It wasn't until third grade I finally got a jump on it. I was a late bloomer. And this woman, in the school I went to, we had so many different librarians, and nearly every one of them was the same as the last. Like, so look frustrated and angry and like, golly, whatever. I mean, come on, you're the one that chose to pick the job. I mean, and you're in elementary school. What do you expect? So, this woman didn't, like, how can I say, didn't interact with me. So usually when you check out a book, you put the book down. And the funny part is she was reading a book. So it's not like I did anything wrong. So the first person checked out a book just fine. And I think their book was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I don't know, one of those scary story books. So they got to check it out just fine. Alright. Then it was my turn to check out the book, which was Where the Sidewalk Ends. And all of a sudden, she takes one look at the book and one look at me, and she goes, those are for 5th graders. Excuse me, the book that the other guy just took out is for a 5th grader. He's 1st grader, and if that's a 5th grader book, then how come he gets to check that out and I can't? So I didn't argue with her. I ended up checking out another book. I was like, yeah, okay. I just took a book and she checked it out just fine. There was no problem. Then when it came time to return that book, it was a different librarian. So Okay, it was a different librarian, and I returned the book, and I was like, you know what? Let me see something. So I took the book that I was denied to check out before, and I wanted to see what happens. If this woman also denied me to check out that book, I would ask why. And if I would ask why, and she said, go ask your teacher, I would ask my teacher, first grade teacher. She wasn't a good teacher. Oh, that's a different tale for another time. She wasn't, I would tell my teacher. Now, if my teacher, said this, and this, and I would tell my mom, like if my teacher said, well, you can't do this and that, well, blah, 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 I would go and tell my mom. Now, if my teacher said, well, your mom told us not to check out that book, I would ask my mom and see if that was true or not. And if that was the case, ask her why. Why can't I check out that book? What was the problem? But that didn't get to happen because I put the book down, and the woman, again, was a different librarian. She took one look at me and she goes, you want to check that book out? I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. And she goes, okay, cool. She scanned my library card. She checked whatever needed to be checked. She scanned my book. And she goes, okay, here you go. Be sure to return it on this date. I said, okay, cool. I was like, okay, took the book, had my mom read it. That was it. Nothing wrong with that. So when it's time to return that book, that librarian who denied me the first time was there. And I said, all right, okay. All right, she's here. No biggie. I'm going to get whatever book I want. Surely she's not going to deny me a second time for a different entirely book, but didn't think anything of it. And I put the book in the drop box, whatever you call it. And I was going to go on my way. I saw her at the corner of my eye, turn to see the book. And she goes, you check this book out? And she goes, read this. You can't even read that. Why you check? After that whole thing, I never saw her again. So either she got in trouble or she just had enough. But who are you to deny someone, anyone a book because they're illiterate? That's wrong. You don't know if they'd take that book home and have someone read it to them. What's the problem? Because you don't like people who are illiterate and you think you're smarter than them? Yeah, no. Never saw this woman again. Again, the only times I have ever heard, and it seems like she just had the issue. Obviously, it was her that had the issue, not me. Not anyone else. Look at the other librarian didn't have an issue. Because even she knew. Even if this girl or boy or whomever doesn't know how to read, they probably have someone reading it to them. So obviously she had the issue. Like I said, I've heard of people getting turned away from checking out books because they have an overdue library book or they have late fees. They damaged one book and they haven't paid for that book. Perhaps they already have enough books checked out, and if they want to check another book out, one of those books or all of those books have to be returned before they can check out another one. Books you're put on a waiting list because the book is so popular, things like that. Or perhaps, like I said, a child reading a book that's really not for theirs. I'm pretty sure it says, wouldn't you like another book, like one with pictures and things like that? I'm sure they're not going to say, well, you can't have that book because it's got a lot of wording in it. That first or fifth or whoever could be a freaking genius and they know how to say hydrodexchloral or chlorothiazide or something. Big words. And I'm like I said, like even if let's say what the woman could have done was she didn't have to say those are for fifth graders. She could have just said, oh, you know what? I know a better book. You know what I mean? Like, play it safe. Watch what you say. Like I said, it wasn't like I took a big textbook that obviously had a lot of words in it. It wasn't like I took a book that was, yeah, this is an adult book. There's no reason for a 7-year-old to be reading how the human body works during menstruation or or any of that, you know. But yeah, she had the issue. Obviously, the other librarian didn't, and if and, things like that, because I've never had a problem with all the rest of the librarians. Of course, like um, I remember one time, it looked like I was going to be denied a book, but luckily it didn't happen because I returned it. I remember I returned, there was a librarian there by her desk. I guess she was scanning whatever book she had right there. And I remember dropping off the book into the Dropbox, and I went to check out another book. I was, I believe, in fifth grade when this happened. And I think it was a book on hamsters because I had a hamster, and my mom had recommended that I go get a book of hamsters so we can understand why. I think all hamsters do it. I mean, all rodents do it actually. That they would file their teeth on the bars. Now we didn't know. My mom and I, when we had a hamster named Sparky. Oh my god, I miss her so much. When we had her, we didn't know why she would do it. We would always make fun of, oh, well, she is Houdini, so it looks like because we blocked all her escape routes, she can't escape again. She was Houdini. She was an escape artist, and like maybe she's trying to chew for freedom, you know. But she would always do it, and we didn't know why. And my mom one day recommended, "Hey, go to your school, go to the library there, and see if you could check out a book on hamsters to figure out why she does that. I mean, she does it for a reason. Why we don't know." So I remember I was checking out a book of hamsters for that reason, and I went to check it out. The woman, the librarian, she scanned my library card, and she looked at the screen, and she goes, "Sweetie, you have a book that you checked out. Did you drop off that book? Did you return that book?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am. It's in the Dropbox." And she turns, she goes, "Oh," takes the book, scans my library card again, and then scans that book that I just returned. And then once that, I guess, cleared whatever was cleared, she then scans my library card again and scans the book I want to check out. And she goes, "All right, you're all set. Here you go." That was it. So if I didn't drop off that book, I wouldn't have been able, I would have been denied to, denied checkout to check out that book until I return that book. That's different. That's how it's supposed to be. Hey, you have I can't let you have this book because you still have a book out that needs to be returned. So yeah, a librarian does have the right to deny a book, but not if someone is illiterate, because that is discriminatory and that is unethical, and that's just wrong. Who are you to pick and choose who gets to check out a book and who doesn't? You really have absolutely no right. The parents have now. Like I said, if my mom wrote a list of books and gave it to the librarian and go, "These are the books that my daughter is not allowed to check out," that's different, because then I would take it up with my mom and ask her, "Why can't I check out these books? What's the problem with these books? What's the matter with these books?" That's different, but that didn't happen. I mean, my mom encouraged us to read, even though we prefer video games. But yeah, um, that yeah, that's what happened, and honestly, that is not okay. But what are you gonna do?